Dallas Races Net, first and third Sunday, 8 p.m., W5FC. W5FC. Ham Fixin's Net, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KFI's PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? The directed net, please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 7-3 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So at this time, I will turn that over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do the check-in honors, please.
Thank you, Ms. Billy. This is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'll be your alternate net control this evening, so I'm going to start with low-power, short-time check-ins. If you're one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Please come now. All right, we will then go to general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra, far northeast Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo India 5 Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Lockwood, walking around.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
This is Alpha Golf 5 Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall, AG5 PM.
Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta, Randy Rowlett. November 5 Bravo Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform David, St. Paul, Texas.
Kilo 5 Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz Mesquite.
All right, that's a good time to pause. Let me go ahead and get those folks checked in. I've got W5GUS, that's Gus, in far northeast Dallas, low power. KF5GRH, Melissa in Lockwood, walking around. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto. AG5PM, that's Rich and Rockwall. K5GLD, Randy and Roulette. N5BB, Bill in Irving, K5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch, KG5EIU, David in St. Paul, K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan, KG5WVL, that's James in Carrollton, K5JHA, that's Jazz in Mesquite. Additional check-ins, please come now. All right, let me go ahead and move over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and would like to voice check-in, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. And if you don't have voice, go ahead and chat in that you would like to be included. So I'll take Echolink only. Please come now.
This is Whiskey 0, Mike Bravo Charlie, W0MBC, Shane.
And that's me, Bruce Springs. Hi, Dallas.
Kilo X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Sean, mobile from Irving.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Georgetown, headed north on I-35.
So Golf 5, Bravo Zulu, Whiskey, J-No. J-No Everett.
Low 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John, stationary in Norman, Oklahoma.
Denver 5, Juliet Yankee, Quebec, San Antonio, Texas. Joe on this end.
All right, I may need to fill in there. I do have W0MBC. That would be Shane and Bethany over in Blue Springs, Colorado. I got KX7WTF Sean in Irving somewhere. KG5PPL, that's Patrick in Georgetown. I've got KG5BZW Jay near Weatherford. K5JDW John in his winter home in Norman, Oklahoma. I guess yes, it would be his winter home, I guess. And then I'm trying to make this out. I got numeral 5, Juliet Yankee Kilo. That's Joe in San Antonio. Oh, there you are. I find. Wait a minute. Joe, somehow I really messed up your call. I've got November 5, Juliet Yankee Quebec. Okay, maybe it's just I heard it wrong. I've got you checked in, a little cheat. Anybody else? Anyone else on Echolink like to join? Please come down. All right, thank you, Patrick. I got Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima. I've got you down. I corrected your call. You are checked in. I'll open it up to anyone who'd like to check in. Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay of Mesquite.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-ray, Joe and Wiley.
All right, I think there were 3 check-ins. I got 2 of you, so I'll ask on this next round. N50F, Clay and Mesquite, I have you checked in. KG5 is ZI X-ray. That would be Joe in Wiley. I think I wrote that down right. And I think there was someone else out there, maybe additional check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
All right, then we picked up the stray there, K5ANP, that's Alan, over in Dallas. Anyone else before I turn it back to net control?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
All right, picked up one more. That's KB9SOK, Sean, over in Fort Worth. So we're up to 23 check-ins. I'll send it back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Great, thank you, Tom, and welcome to all who have checked in on Skynet. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any announcements, so I'll go ahead with a few of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. COM N5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is VARC Club Night, so there is no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts several Monday night nets. First Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's Net. This is a net where recipes are shared, and if you have a question, anecdote about food, or a recipe that you want to share or just want to join to gather the wonderful recipes that are shared, join us for Ham Fixin's Net. Second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. On the third Monday, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. Fourth Monday is Geek Net, and the fifth Monday is a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it would be a surprise. On-air participation encouraged. On Tuesdays, AMSAT East is at 8 p.m. This is Q&As, info, and news for amateur satellites. Fridays is CERT Simulation, CERT City at 7:30 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5TRH, is usually net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday at CERT City. All are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets, with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., and of course at 9 p.m., Skynet. And first and third Sundays is Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. Daily lunch bunch at 12 noon, Monday through Friday. There's always a survey question. Eat lunch with us. And the ARRLNet National Traffic System Training Net is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And on Saturdays following Skynet at 10:30 p.m., join us for the Afterglow Movie Net. This is a movie net where we pre-decide on a movie, and then we watch it during the week, and then we'll come back and discuss it on the following Saturday night. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us tonight's Afterglow info.
Thank you, Billy, and I've received numerous awards for these highly accurate descriptions of the movies, so listen carefully. Elliot couldn't believe what was happening. His friend, E.T., got punched in the nose and shoved in a school locker. The bully, Eli, was an 11-year-old who stole lunch money from everyone, even extraterrestrials. E.J. grabbed the money, and a whimpering E.T. heart-glow faded inside the locker's darkness. E.J. ran to a nearby space center. He knew he could shake down a couple of astronauts. He wore a hard hat, faked security badge, and carried a toolbox. Suckers, thought E.J. as he quickly walked past security. He reached the elevator and asked a workman, "What floor are the astronauts?" The man answered, "I think they're on the top. Turn right and knock on the door with the porthole." E.J. reached the spacecraft and knocked on the door. "Candygram," he shouted. The hatch slowly opened. Join us for the next Afterglow movie, Stowaway to the Moon, from 1975, a CBS made-for-TV movie that we'll be talking about at 10:30. I do have a warning. This movie makes the Star Wars Christmas special look like Emmy Award-winning stuff. Back to you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. I will look forward to hearing those synopses every week. And you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. This is KF5TDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next on our program is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. If there's someone on frequency that would like to give information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, please come now with your call sign.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
KF5JHA, the professional astronomer Chaz. What information do you have for us about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Billy. I just want to warn you, I've done this warning over here on Echolink 2. I have a cat that's close by the radio and the computer, so anything could happen. He's just awakened, but he's not stirred, so let's hope that continues. Last night's Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting was at 7:30, and we had a guest speaker, David Eicher. He is the, let's see now, I'm scanning through here, so I'm not giving you everything. He is co-authored and authored and editor of 23 books on science and American history. He's also known to have founded a magazine called Deep Sky Monthly when he was 15 years old. He's currently the editor-in-chief of Astronomy Magazine since 2002. His talk was on his most recent book, Galaxies Inside the Universe's Star Cities. It was really great. Lots of people had lots of questions for him. And, you know, this Zoom meeting stuff, we're getting speakers that we might normally not be able to get because they might not be able to travel to here. So this has been sort of a good thing in some ways, but bad in others. Okay, the next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on November the 20th at 7:30, another virtual meeting on Zoom. Guest speakers were going to be Dr. Richard Olenek and Arthur Sweeney from the University of Dallas. I've known these two gentlemen for a couple of decades. They've been involved with lots of different things, so I'll try to find out what their topic is before next Skynet. So the members will receive, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas members will receive an email link to the meeting about a week in advance of the meeting. I have no idea when TAS will resume face-to-face meetings. Nobody does. And we hope we can resume public observing sessions sometime soon. Check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website, texasastro.org, for update information and details. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to Billy.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Yeah, and as Chaz mentioned, public observing parties are suspended until further notice. And we'll be the first here on Skynet to let you know when they resume. In the meantime, you can ask your questions here as we have a number of TAS members who participate on this net. And as Chaz said, you can keep up with TAS events by going to www.texasastro.org and select a calendar and pull down for complete details. Next is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll call on Bill, N5BB, if you'll give us information about the National Space Society.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Billy. This is N5BB. I am the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. If anyone has any questions about National Space Society or would like to join the national group and or our local chapter, you can reach me at n5bb@arrl.net or space@byrom.net. That's byrom.net. Either email address works. Like other organizations, we can't do any outreach in-person meetings or have monthly in-person organization meetings like we normally do. So we're still doing everything on WebEx. Our last meeting, unfortunately, the October meeting, our speaker could not be there from NASA. She has been rescheduled till December. I'll describe that in just a moment. Our next local chapter meeting via WebEx will be 2 weeks from after tomorrow. So it'll be Sunday, November the 8th at 4 p.m. on a WebEx. If you would like to participate in this, send me an email at one of the two email addresses I gave earlier, and I would be happy to let you be a guest for the one meeting. So our speaker this coming meeting is planned to be Daniel Delago, who is a flight software engineer at SpaceX. So this should be very interesting, hearing something directly from an engineer doing things at SpaceX. We're very excited to get him. Our following meeting in December, since we can't get together in person, we're not having a Christmas party like we normally do. So our December meeting will be on Sunday, December the 13th at 4 p.m. And our meeting topic again will be what we planned for October, which will be Amy Ross, who is the daughter of Jerry Ross, and she is, I think, in charge, or one of the key people in charge of spacesuit development at NASA Johnson Spacecraft Center in Houston. She'll be talking about the current, what's going on with spacesuit design, etc. And she'll be talking about the experiment that's on the new Perseverance rover that's on its way to Mars now, which has some targets which can be tested with the Sherlock tool, and they'll be able to see how these targets wear out on Mars. This is how spacesuit materials can handle the real environment for Mars for months and months and months, which is a really cool thing to be able to do. And unfortunately, with no local activities, that's all I have now. Inside BB. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. All right. Next up is discussion topic of the evening. So tonight, my topic will be the NASA's Psyche mission. Mission to a metal world. You can find this information on the jpl.nasa.gov website, and also there's a Wikipedia article so you can read about the Psyche mission. The Psyche mission is a journey to a unique metal asteroid orbiting the sun between Mars and Jupiter. What makes the asteroid Psyche unique is that it appears to be the exposed nickel-iron core of an early planet, one of the building blocks of our solar system. Deep within rocky terrestrial planets, including Earth, scientists infer the presence of metallic cores, but these lie unreachably far below the planet's rocky mantles and crusts. Because we cannot see or measure Earth's core directly, Psyche offers a unique window into the violent history of collisions and accretion that created terrestrial planets. The mission is led by Arizona State University. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory is responsible for mission management, operations, and navigation. The spacecraft's solar electric propulsion chassis will be built by Maxar with a payload that includes an imager, magnetometer, and gamma-ray spectrometer. Science goals for this mission are to understand a previously unexplored building block of planet formation, iron cores. This will also give a look inside terrestrial planets, including Earth, by directly examining the interior of a differentiated body which otherwise could not be seen. And they will also have the opportunity to explore a new type of world. For the first time, they will be able to examine a world not made of rock and ice, but of metal. Science objectives are to determine whether Psyche is a core or if it's unmelted material, determine if the relative ages of regions of Psyche's surface, determine whether small metal bodies incorporate the same light elements as are expected in the Earth's high-pressure core, determine whether Psyche was formed under conditions more oxidizing or more reducing than Earth's core, and characterize Psyche's topography. Science questions this mission will address are, is 16 Psyche the stripped core of a differentiated planetesimal, or was it formed as an body? What were the building blocks of planets? Did planetesimals that form close to the sun have very different bulk compositions? If Psyche was stripped of its mantle, when and how did that occur? If Psyche was once molten, did it solidify from the inside out or the outside in? Did Psyche produce a magnetic dynamo as it cooled? What are the major alloy elements that coexist in the iron metal of the core? What are the key characteristics of the geologic surface and global topography? Does Psyche look radically different from known stony and icy bodies? And how do craters on a metal body differ from those in rock and ice? Scientific instruments and investigations are the multispectral imager, gamma-ray and neutron spectrometer, magnetometer, and X-band gravity science investigation. Multispectral imager will provide high-resolution images using filters to discriminate between metallic and silicate constituents. The gamma ray and neutron spectrometer will analyze and map the asteroid's elemental composition. The magnetometer will measure and map the remnant magnetic field of the asteroid. And the X-band gravity science investigation will use the X-band microwave radio telecommunication system to measure the asteroid's gravity field and deduce its interior structure. Spacecraft will also test an laser communication technology called deep space optical communication. Psyche mission will test the sophisticated new laser communication technology that encodes data in photons rather than radio waves to communicate between a probe in deep space and Earth. Using light instead of radio allows the spacecraft to communicate more data in a given amount of time. And the Deep Space Optical Communication Team is based at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Mission timeline is as follows. In 2022, there will be the launch of Psyche spacecraft from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 2023 will see a Mars flyby of the Psyche spacecraft. In 2026, Psyche spacecraft will arrive in the asteroid's orbit. And in 2026 and 27, the Psyche spacecraft will orbit the Psyche asteroid. There you have it, a brief rundown on the future mission, the Psyche mission, Journey to a Metal World. Again, you can find this information and read more on the jpl.nasa.gov Psyche mission page. And there are other pages that give more details. And you can also see more about the history and more details on the Wikipedia page for the Psyche mission. And there are other NASA pages that you can explore as well. This is KFI-PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, at this time, we'll turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA, and you'll give us the rundown on What's Up. Handing the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA from KF5PDS.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Billy. Sorry I had a delay there. I have a cat wandering around. So, my degree is in astrophysics, and I'm an astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up. This is slide number 2. The moon was at its first quarter phase on October 23rd. Hey, you've been able to see it a few times over the last few days, haven't you, the moon? So the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. We have a full moon on October 31st. It will be a blue moon on October 31st. Why? Because the second full moon in the same month is a blue moon. On average, we get a blue moon about every 2.5 years, or about once in a blue moon. Slide number 3. On October the 6th was the closest approach of Mars and the Earth. Mars was at its opposition on October the 13th, and this amounts to, it's a great time to still look at Mars, even though the closest approach has passed, but we're still close enough to see it really well. So since public observing has been canceled due to COVID-19, just get out your largest telescope and gaze at Mars. It's beautiful. Even if you don't have a telescope or binoculars, go outside and take a look. Go find the moon. Off to the right, you'll see Jupiter and Saturn, and off to the left, you'll see the orange planet Mars. Slide number 4, looking in the east on the evening of October the 28th, you'll find Mars and the moon in conjunction. That means they'll be close together. And Mars will still be close enough for you to be able to get a good look at it through a telescope. Slide number 5. Let's talk about meteor showers in October and November. Well, October's over, so we'll talk about November meteors. There are 5 meteor showers in October, all of them have passed. Let's talk about the meteor showers in November. There are 4 meteor showers to talk about in November. Let me talk about 2 of the meteor showers. The northern toroids peak on the night of November the 11th and 12th with about half a dozen meteors per hour. But one of the best meteor showers of the year, the Leonids, will peak on the night of November 17th and 18th with between 10 to over 400 meteors per hour. We have seen high unexpected meteor counts for a few times in the last 20 years, so some of those are unpredicted. Watching this meteor shower away from the satellites is a must because we might see a meteor storm. I always suggest camping at a Texas State Park to watch the meteors. For details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 6. In the current evening sky, you'll find 3 bright stars nearly overhead as it gets dark. And these 3 stars are called the summer triangle because they form a triangle that are above the horizon and along during the entire long, short summer nights. They see Mom because it's hot. Vega is the brightest of the 3 meteors. I'm still talking about meteors. Vega is the brightest of the 3 stars and is located in the constellation of Lyra, the Harp. Vega shines at a magnitude of 0 in brightness and is a distance of 26 light years from us. Just a trivia fact, Vega was the location of the alien signals in the movie Contact. The next star in the summer triangle is Altair. It's the southernmost of the 3 stars and located in the constellation of Aquila, the Eagle. It shines at a brightness of 1st magnitude. Hey, those are things you can reference. Vega is the 0th magnitude star. Altair is the 1st magnitude star. You want to compare brightnesses of other things to them? Those are standards you can use. Altair is at a brightness of 1st magnitude. I just said at a distance of 17 light years from the Earth. This reminds me, what do you call a sick eagle? An ill eagle, of course. Back to the summer triangle. The easternmost star, the dimmest of the 3, is called Deneb, located in Cygnus the Swan. We know it is fall because the Swan is flying south along the Milky Way. Deneb shines at a brightness of about 1.25 magnitude and is 3,230 light years away from us. Cygnus is also known as the Northern Cross. Deneb being on the top of the cross. And an interesting fact is that the Northern Cross stands upright on the northwestern evening sky just after dark on Christmas Eve. So once again, the Texas Astronomical Society had their monthly meeting last night at 7:30, and David Eicher was the featured speaker. That was great. And once again, the guest speakers on November the 20th will be Dr. Richard Olenek and Arthur Sweeney from the University of Dallas. You know, that's a place that is next to where the old Texas Stadium is. And I actually got to see the implosion of that old Texas Stadium from a building at the University of Dallas. So that was kind of fun to see and watch. To find out more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, go to their website, texasastro.org, for updated information. Okay, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of this information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I like to hear questions, and I might know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
W5GUS with Phil. Did you say the peak of that meteor shower was November 17, 17, W5GUS?
I'm not sure if I'm making it to the repeaters.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so it sounds like a mic is open somewhere too. Yeah, it's the night of November 17th, 18, Gus. That's when Leonid meteor shower will happen. It always happens around that date. It depends on leap year by a day or two, but that's a good night to go out and take a look at meteors, although the moon might be a little bit bright, but it depends on when you take a look, whether the moon has risen yet.
Roger, got that. Thank you, W5GUS.
Well, thank you for the question, Gus. Okay, I want to welcome the students from Brookhaven College. Well, actually, it's Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus that are listening and watching the Skynet tonight. We have up to 5 different astronomy classes of students that will be listening tonight. Students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. Slide number 9. So as the moon waned in the first part of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world, and don't we need it. Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5, JHA, back to Billy, our net control.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-Ray. I've got a question my wife and I are wondering about.
I guess that's okay with net control. Go ahead, this is Chaz.
Yes, sir. I hope I'm not out of line here. I was just kind of halfway listening. And the other night, my wife and I were sitting out front. We live in Wiley. And we made the comment to each other. We hadn't seen any satellites go by in quite some time. And we looked up, and there went one from north to south. So it was kind of funny. It was like, well, there's one right now. And then it appeared to be another one, like within minutes, doing the same direction. And I talked to a friend of mine from work, and he said, well, you know, we're in a meteor shower, and maybe that wasn't a satellite. Maybe it was a couple of meteors. And my wife has a app on her laptop, and I thought she used to be able to look up at the sky and see if it was a space station or a satellite or whatever, but those two objects going by didn't show up on her laptop. I was wondering if they possibly there were a couple of meteors or what, but they were going the exactly same angle, north to south. So could that have been meteors or satellites, and why wasn't it showing up on her laptop app?
That is a great question. Just to let you know, heavens-above.com is a great place to go to look for satellite predictions. But it does not have all the satellites. You see, there are some top-secret military ones from multiple countries that aren't reported on that website. So it could have been one of those interesting satellites. If you want to tell the difference between a satellite and a meteor, meteors usually go through the sky really quickly, very fast. Satellites usually go much slower. You can see them for quite some time, sometimes minutes. With a meteor, a second or two is probably all you've got with a meteor. So I hope I've answered your question. Did this give you some information?
Well, yeah, you did kind of remind or kind of verify in my mind what kind of like will be a shooting star. Those kind of just like zip across, and these were definitely satellites. Apparently, they were just going slowly north to south, and they were on the same trajectory, I guess you could say. And they could have been from foreign countries. I don't know, but apparently. But they were going pretty slow and going south on pretty much the same line. So apparently it was not a shooting star. But it's kind of funny that it did not show up on my wife's computer app, but it could be because it was from another country. So thank you for the help, and I appreciate the reply. Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-ray.
Oh, you're welcome. And once again, it doesn't have to be from another country. It could be from us. The U.S. military has secret satellites as well. Okay, this is KF5 JHA, back to net control. Billy.
A comment in 5BB.
BD, go ahead with your comment.
Yes, this is in 5BB. I also might want to point out there are large numbers of communication satellites that have been launched recently. The most well-known series of these, the largest number, is from SpaceX. It's their Starling Satellites. And the Starling Satellites are all in line. So what you may have been seeing is those. There may be far too many to be on the app that your wife is using. There's many hundreds, and there will be many thousands of these satellites. This has been a very big political issue because the satellites are bright enough to bother astronomers, and they're pretty easily visible in 5BB.
Kilo Golf.
Great, thank you very much for the comment. Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Chaz before we move on to our next segment? And I do have an announcement that I saw in the chat, so I will get to that. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Chaz?
A minute or two, but it could be the SpaceX thing.
Not sure what that was. Somebody coming forth with a question or comment. If so, please come now. I was informed in the chat that there was a double. If you have a question or comment, please come now with your call sign. Hearing anything? I just want to mention that in the chat window, someone brought up that Dallas College does have an astronomy tutor. So students, you'd be interested to know that. Go to dcccd.edu. On the page, it says currently enrolled students can make appointments to utilize limited face-to-face tutoring services and select computer labs at all campuses. So check with your college website, again, dcccd.edu. to learn how you can make an appointment and book some of that astronomy tutoring time. So thank you for that shout out in the chat. All right, this is KF5 PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. At this time, I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX. If you'll do a check-in round, see if we have any additional check-ins. And after that, I give you permission to turn the net over to Kelly, K5KTX, for her segment on space exploration and space history. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Very good, and this is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and announce there are a few other people, non-hams, that are here. I'll go ahead and acknowledge them. Cindy, I think, from Dallas College. April from Royce City is there. Enrique, also from Dallas College, Brookhaven. They are checked in, and then I'm going to go ahead and say Galen, KG5ZIX. He's there from Wiley. Let me go ahead and take additional. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
So Golf 5, Zulu, Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
All right, very good. We picked up 2 more. We got WB4MSI, that's Ted over in Dallas, low power, and KG5ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington. Welcome back, Ted, and welcome, Joe, to the net. Let us go to K5KTX. Miss Kelly, you're up with space history this week. Go right ahead from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX, and good evening, everybody. So this week I'm just going to cover some space history. So this past week, starting with October the 19th, back in 1910, Subrahman Chandrasekhar was born. He was an Indian-American astrophysicist who spent his professional life in the United States. He was awarded the 1983 Nobel Prize for Physics with William A. Fowler. His mathematical treatment of stellar evolution yielded many of the current theoretical models of the later evolutionary stages of massive stars and black holes. Chandrasekhar worked on a wide variety of physical problems in his lifetime. Most famously in the popular press, Chandrasekhar showed that the mass of a white dwarf could not exceed 1.44 times that of the Sun, the Chandrasekhar limit. Stars larger than that size become a neutron star or black hole at the end of their life. The Chandra X-ray Observatory was named in his honor. Also on October the 19th, back in 1967, the Mariner 5 spacecraft flew by Venus. The probe was originally built as a backup for the Mariner 4 Mars mission, but thanks to that mission's success, Mariner 5 was modified to become a Venus mission. Mariner 5 launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station on June 14, 1967. And on October 19th, at 1:43 p.m. Eastern Time, it had its closest approach at about 2,500 miles above the surface of Venus. Mariner 5 was the second successful Venus flyby mission. Mariner 2 in December 1962 was the first. However, this accomplishment was overshadowed by the success of the USSR just a day earlier. On October 18, 1967, Venera 4 successfully entered the atmosphere of Venus and transmitted data for 93 minutes as it descended under a parachute to the surface. It was the first spacecraft to transmit data from another planet's atmosphere. Contact with Mariner 5 was lost on December 4, 1967, but was temporarily regained on October 14, 1968. It's now in orbit around the Sun. October the 20th, 1995, after a series of delays, Space Shuttle Columbia launched on mission STS-73 from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It was originally scheduled to launch on September 25th, but that launch was scrubbed. It was then rescheduled for October 5th, but that launch was scrubbed as well. In fact, STS-73's launch was scrubbed on the launch pad 6 times. Only one other mission scrubbed as many times, STS-61C, also on Space Shuttle Columbia in 1986. Both missions launched successfully on the 7th attempt. On October the 22nd, 1975, the Soviet Venera 9 lander touched down on Venus. The craft sent the very first photo from the surface of another planet. On October the 23rd, 1979, the band The Police filmed a music video radio for their song Walking on the Moon at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. In fact, many productions have been filmed in part at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, including the films Contact in 1997, Apollo 13 in 1995, Tomorrowland 2015, and Armageddon in 1998, Transformers Dark of the Moon in 2011, and more. To our knowledge, however, the police are the only filmmakers who use the engine of a Saturn V rocket as a drum set. And on this date, October 24th, 1961, the Manned Spacecraft Center was formally established. NASA had announced a month earlier that the Space Task Group, which led NASA's first crewed missions in the Mercury and Gemini programs, would move from Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia to Houston, Texas. With the accelerating pace of crewed missions in pursuit of the eventual Apollo 11 moon landing, the Space Task Group needed to expand, and Houston became the home of mission control, starting with Gemini 4 in June of 1965. And then here are the astronauts' birthdays for this past week. Ronald McNair, October the 21st, 1950, he was on the STS Space Shuttle STS-41B, and then on the ill-fated Challenger STS-51L. Douglas Hurley was also born on October the 21st, but back in 1966, and he's been a part of 2 Space Shuttle missions, STS-127, and the final Space Shuttle mission, STS-135, and of course, most recently, he was on the SpaceX Demo 2 mission. Also having a birthday this week was astronaut Donald Peterson. His birthday was October 22nd, 1933, and he was on Space Shuttle mission STS-6. And finally, astronaut Susan Kilrain was October 24th, today, 1961, and she was on 2 Space Shuttle missions, STS-83 and STS-94. And that's all I've got tonight. This is K5KTX.
Thank you very much, Kelly. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. All right, at this time, I'll return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA, if you'll give us Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week.
Why, thank you once again. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued the tradition of constellation per week, and Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Lacerta, a lizard. Did you know there was a lizard in the sky? Lacerta is the 68th constellation in size, occupying an area of 201 square degrees. Lacerta contains no Messier objects. We've talked about those things before. The name of Lacerta does not come from mythology. The constellation of Lacerta the lizard was created by a Polish astronomer in 1687 to fill a void between Cassiopeia and Cygnus. In addition to the name Lacerta, which is Latin for lizard, this Polish guy also offered up the name of Stellito or Stellino for this constellation. Stellino is a type of lizard with a star-like spots that lives in the area surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. The name Stellino is derived from the Latin word, which is stella, which means, of course, star. Even though a starry lizard seems more appropriate than a plain lizard for this constellation, the name Lacerta won out, and that's what we call it today, Lacerta. Slide number 11, Alpha Lacertae, the brightest star in Lacerta, shining at magnitude 3.8. That's not very bright. By the way, inside the city, you might not see this star. It is a visual double, if you're away from the city lights, where the companion is about 36 arc seconds from Alpha, shining at a magnitude of 11.8. That's very faint. You need a good telescope to see that. The two stars are not really associated with each other in space, but simply appear along the same line of sight. Another star that we want to talk about is Rho 47, a multiple star system with 5 stars in all. The two brightest stars shine at magnitudes 5.9 and 9.8. 5.9 you can see through a telescope and binoculars, and 9.8 is fainter, but they're easily split. Higher magnification is required to see all 5 stars. And Dave Hutchinson, a friend of mine, recommends 200 power or more, and recommends that the 2 stars show at a nice color contrast. Lacerta 8, or 8 Lacerta, is in a double star club. It's another easily split double star. The primary shines at 5.7, and with a magnitude of 6.5 is the companion. And they're 22 arc seconds away, which is good enough that you can use a small telescope and see. You might be able to see it with your 2 eyes, maybe. The 2 stars separated. In his Deep Sky Wonders column, the late Walter Scott Houston noted that the 2 more stars of 9th and 10th magnitude lie 82 seconds apart and 49 seconds apart from the primary and may be part of the same physical system. So, a 5-star cluster? Wow, pretty cool. We're up to slide number 12, NGC. That means New General Catalog. 7243 is an open cluster. There are 2 types of clusters of stars. A globular cluster, which forms with the galaxies, and open clusters form over a period of time and are the newer clusters of stars. And they can have many multiple sizes of different types of stars in them. Globular clusters are usually all about the same size, about the same size as our sun. Anyways, NGC 7243 is an open cluster. The first of the 3 mentions in an article in a Spectrum newsletter. Dave Hutchinson mentions that Stephen J. O'Meara writes about observing this cluster with a naked eye in his book, The Caldwell Objects. If sharp-eyed observers can see the cluster without optical aids, then it would be appropriately to make it a fairly good binocular object, wouldn't you think? So that is why NGC 7243 makes it in the Binocular Deep Sky Club, and even the Urban Observing Club. David Hutchinson writes that this cluster is obvious when observing it through low magnification, but with higher magnifications, it begins to blend into the background of stars because the edge of the Lacerta, is next to the Milky Way. Both O'Meara and Walter Scott Houston mentioned that a nice double star in the cluster's edge. O'Meara notes that Struve 2890, a fine double star, is also visible in small apertures. One more faint deep sky object, NGC 7209, it's called the Star Lizard Cluster. It's another open cluster, easy to make out in binoculars, so it's not that faint. And it's in the Deep Sky and Urban Observing Clubs. It can be resolved with small telescopes, and Walter Scott Houston notes that in low power it stands out nicely from the Milky Way. This agrees nicely with David Hutchinson's observation that the cluster is best used at low power. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Lacerta the Lizard. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, and they're adding several more, which is probably going to make it go over 70 different observing programs. Most of the programs have around 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects from the same observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. And slide number 15, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Lacerta the Lizard. And I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson, and Dennis Harwell for their research and words that I borrow every week on observing deep sky objects that I've used here tonight. I also use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Great place. What are we going to talk about next week? Aquarius, the water bear. Okay, this is KF5JJ Chaz, back to net control. Thank you, Billy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the BARC Skynet. All right, at this time, I'll call on Tom, KE5ICX, if you will give us information about space launches for this week.
Thank you, Miss Billy. And this morning, I don't know if you had a chance to watch on SpaceX.com, but yet another Starlink spacecraft launched with 60 satellites on board. Was also the 100th launch for a Falcon 9 rocket. This one had flown in space 3 times before. This makes the 4th. So big achievement today. 100th launch of a Falcon 9, successful launch of a Falcon 9. And there was a retrieval of the first stage, which was successful. The vehicle was, or the landing pad was just reading the instructions, one of the floating ones out there. And then the fairings, the oversized fairing that protects the satellites as it goes to orbit, I believe were both recovered. I'm not entirely sure about that, but they're trying to recycle as much as they can. Tomorrow, there's a Soyuz Glasnost K mission from Plistik Cosmodrome in Russia. This will launch a Glasnost K navigation satellite, which is upgraded satellite for the Russians' global positioning and timing network. The rocket will fly on the standard Soyuz 2.1B configuration with a Fregat upper stage. This is delayed from August of this year. On October 26th, we have a Long March 3B launch from China at Xicheng, China, the Tiantong 1-02. This will be a Long March 3B rocket that will launch a mobile communication satellite. On October 28th, we have a launch from the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand from Launch Complex 1. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch on its 15th flight with a CESat-2B Earth imaging microsatellite for Canon Electronics and 9 Super Dove Earth imaging nanosatellites for Planet. Rocket Lab nicknamed the launch In Focus in reference to the Earth observation payloads on the mission. We also have another Falcon 9 launch, the Enroll 108 from Launch Complex 39A. That's the old moon pad. A SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch classified spacecraft payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. It is designated Enroll 108. First stage booster is expected to attempt to return to the launch site landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Also, sometime here in October, maybe into November, from Launch Complex SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral, that's just about a mile down from the other launch site that I just mentioned, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the U.S. Air Force 4th third-generation navigation satellite for the GPS system. The satellite was built by Lockheed Martin. And then I'm going to end with this one as we're getting into that time zone now. There is an Atlas V, the Enroll 101, that will launch from the same launch pad, SLC-41. This Atlas V rocket will launch a classified satellite for the National Reconnaissance Office. Will fly in the 531 vehicle configuration with 5-meter fairing, 3 solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. The mission was changed from an earlier planned 551 configuration. I don't know what the difference is, but I imagine it's thrust capability. This will be the first launch of an Atlas V rocket with the new Northrop Grumman-built GEM 63 solid rocket motors, replacing the Aerojet AJ-60A solid rocket motors used on previous Atlas Vs. And I'll just say there's a ton of missions coming up in November, so if you want to learn more about this, you can go to spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule, and you'll find this updated almost daily. Back to net control. Well, I can go ahead and take any additional check-ins, and then I'll send it back to net control. Any additional check-ins, please come now. All right, Miss Billy, this is KE5ICX, and that is yours again.
Thank you very much, Tom. At this time, we'll turn over to recent astronomical discoveries. So I will turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. And this article is about NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. It collected a significant amount from an asteroid. 2 days after touching down on the asteroid Bennu, NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission team received on Thursday, October 22nd, images that confirm the spacecraft has collected more than enough material to meet one of its main mission requirements, acquiring at least 2 ounces of the asteroid's surface material. The spacecraft captured images of the sample collector head as it moves through several different positions. In reviewing these images, the OSIRIS-REx team noticed both that the head appeared to be full of asteroid particles and that some of these particles appeared to be escaping slowly from the sample collector, called the Touch-and-Go Sample Acquisition Mechanism, or TAGSAM head. They suspect bits of material are passing through small gaps where a mylar flap, the collector's lid, is slightly wedged open by larger rocks. Bennu continues to surprise us with great science and also throwing a few curveballs, said Thomas Zurbuchen, NASA's Associate Administrator for Science at the agency's headquarters in Washington. And although we may have to move more quickly to stow the sample, it's not a bad problem to have. We are so excited to see what happens, what appears to be an abundant sample that will inspire science for decades beyond this historic moment. The team believes it has collected a sufficient sample and is on its path to stow the sample as quickly as possible. They came to this conclusion after comparing images of the empty collector head with October 22nd images of the TAGSAM head after the sample collection event. Images also show that any movement to the spacecraft and the TAGSAM instrument may lead to further sample loss. To preserve the remaining material, the mission team decided to forego the sample mass measurement activity originally scheduled for Saturday, October 24th, and canceled a breaking burn scheduled for Friday to minimize any acceleration to the spacecraft. From here, the OSIRIS-REx team will focus on stowing the sample in a sample return capsule, or SRC, where any loose material will be kept safe during the spacecraft's journey back to Earth. We are working to keep up with our own success here, and my job is to safely return as large a sample of Bennu as possible, said Dante Lacerta, OSIRIS-REx principal investigator at the University of Arizona in Tucson, who leads the science team in the mission's science observation, planning, and data processing. The loss of mass is of concern to me, so I'm strongly encouraging the team to stow this precious sample as quickly as possible. The TAG-SAM head performed the sampling of it in optimal conditions. Newly available analyses show that the collector head was flush with Bennu's surface when it made contact and when the nitrogen gas bottle was fired to stir surface material. It also penetrated several centimeters into the asteroid's surface material. All data so far suggests that the collector head is holding much more than 2 ounces of regolith. OSIRIS-REx remains in good health, and the mission team is finalizing a timeline for sample storage. An update will be provided once a decision is made on the sample storage timing and procedures. NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland provides overall mission management, systems engineering, and the safety and mission assurance for OSIRIS-REx. Lockheed Martin Space in Denver built the spacecraft and is providing flight operations. Goddard and Kenneth X Aerospace of Tempe, Arizona are responsible for navigating the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. It's the third mission in NASA's New Frontiers program, which is managed by NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. All right, back to net. This is WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. All right, next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. So I'll return then it to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us some information about the visible satellite passages from KF5PDS.
Thank you again, Billy. Sort of ping-pong tonight, but that's okay. Let's see here. What we have is, this comes from heavens-above.com. This is where you can go, and it was mentioned earlier by Chaz, where you can get all sorts of information on satellite passages, as well as AMSAT passages as well. You can go ahead and, it's not just visible passes that they track, they do the others as well, anything that is passing overhead. In fact, there is a map of a global map showing where many of the satellites are located. They recently added a Starlink map with the hundreds of satellites that are currently in orbit, soon to be thousands, which Bill mentioned as well. You can see that stuff is taking up a significant sections of space. All right, I've got a few things here. There's the X-37B. That's the Winged Secret Air Force, or actually Space Force, I guess now. That's launched and usually stays in orbit from 2 to 3 years. We have a pass on November 1st. That'll be a 3.8 magnitude at 4:31 a.m. I'm sorry, November 1st, the second pass, is a 0.8 magnitude at 6:04, 90 minutes later. The west-southwest reached its highest point at 51 degrees at 6:07 a.m., and then it'll be fall at 6:10. On November 2nd, we have another pass, 1.0 magnitude at 5:09. It'll reach its highest point at 63 degrees, so it'll come out of shadow and then fall to the east-northeast at 5:11. Next, we have the North Korean satellite. Check my time here. October 27th, 6.9 magnitude at 6:46 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 63 degrees at 6:50 and falls at 6:53. Then on October 30th, it will fly over again at 6.3 magnitude at 7:01 a.m., reach its highest point at 7:05 at 73 degrees, and then fall to the south-southwest at 7:08 at around 10 degrees. Then on the 31st, it's 7.9 magnitude. 6:35 a.m. It sounds like there's a pattern going on here. It'll reach its highest point at 6:38 at only 41 degrees and then fall at 6:42. And then finally, NVSAT, an environmental satellite, will have, let's see, pass on the 27th. The 27th, I'm looking here, 3.9 magnitude at 7:05 a.m., reaches its highest point at 7:10, out of 55 degrees in the east, then fall at 7:15. Then we have the 31st. There are two passes. The better pass is at 19:06 or 7:06 p.m., reaches its highest point at 19:11, about 50 degrees, then falls at 19:16. Then November 1st is the really good pass, which will be 3.2 magnitude at 6:19 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 80 degrees, almost directly overhead at 6:24, and it'll fall at 6:29. Now, it is possible to see these satellites. I know that with a lot of light pollution, that would be a problem. We can't do anything about the clouds, but we can. You can see these objects fly over. And Galen made a mention, and I thought it was kind of appropriate. About 11 years ago, I think it was at least 11 years ago now, I saw the International Space Station go over from south to north or southwest to northeast, and it was one of the final missions of the Space Shuttle Discovery going to the space station. And it was pretty cool watching the two of them fly in formation. They had been separated for about an hour or two, and you could see them flying overhead in formation, similar to what Galen was talking about. Very impressive, and maybe we'll get to see a little more of that when the Dragons start flying to the International Space Station. And that's it for me. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Great, thank you, Tom. We do still have a few minutes left, so I'll throw this open to astronomical Q&A. Who has any astronomical questions that they'd like to bring to the net? We'll open it up now. Please come now with your call sign. We have some very knowledgeable folks on this net that may be able to answer your questions. So if you have an astronomical question, feel free to come now with your call sign. Not hearing any, so at this time we'll move on to 7-3 round. So are there any other checked-in stations that have any remarks or questions? If so, please come now with your call sign. Great. Don't hear anything, so thanks to all who joined. We'll get a final check-in round here in just a moment. I did want to give a shout-out to the Dallas College listeners. Thank you all for joining our net. And thanks again, Huey, for the reminder about the Astro tutoring. Is that just, let me ask, I do have a question. Is that just at the Brookhaven campus, or is there astronomy tutoring at all of the Dallas College campuses?
KF5, JHA.
JHA, go ahead.
Yeah, Huey's actually a tutor for Dallas College, which means any student that's taking astronomy anywhere in the district could get a hold of him. His hours are posted online. If the student has access to something called eCampus, they should be able to see his schedule of when he's available for tutoring. So he's available for any of the different colleges. Okay, any of the different campuses of Dallas College. Okay, I hope I made that clear. KF5JHA.
It's such a big system. I just wanted to be sure of how that was working. So folks that are interested in astronomy tutoring can go find Mr. Stevens' information, and anyone at any of the campuses in the Dallas College system can take advantage of that tutoring. So book your astronomy tutoring appointments. All right, thank you, Chad, for that information. At this time, I'll throw the net back to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will do a final check-in round and let me know how many folks we had in total checked in tonight. This is KF5PDS to KE5ICX.
And this is KE5ICX. Final call. I'll take final check-ins for tonight's Skynet. Please come with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from. Well, I guess they all got in early. We had 29 check-ins this evening. Back to net control, KE5ICX.
Copy that tonight we had 29 hams participating on the air. So thank you to all who checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning
night, this is KF5PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. So 7-3 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, starting at 10:30, we'll have the Afterglow movie net. So join us tonight for some good fun and some movie chat. So 7-3 everybody.
All right, we will be back with Stowaway to the Moon from 1975, the CBS made-for-TV movie with an 11-year-old. Yeah, N.P. Conrad, the astronaut, playing an 11. No, he's not playing the 11-year-old. Come back in about 5 minutes. If you come back a little early, you can hear the net control people trying to decide who the heck is going to be net control. That's always interesting, too. See you in 5. This is KE5I6. I know you're out there. Who wants to be net control tonight? Come on. Come up, cough up your call sign.
Well, I don't want to do it, but if you don't, and nobody else throws their head in the ring, I guess I would do it, Tom. This isn't 5BB.
Bill is net control for the Afterglow movie net. That could be interesting. All right, if you like to do it, you remember all the complicated rules, right? Plot, characterization, special effects, and everything you loved about the movie. Better write that down because it's pretty complex.
Tom, I've done this before. You don't remember?
Oh, I suppose you have. You've done so many nets. I don't know. Saturdays just kind of like fade into one big thing.
I think you may have had a little bit too much wine on the net when I was net control. It may have just zipped right past you.
All right, where you are the guy. Oh, Brenda says you did Titanic too. That's true, but that was a tough movie. But you handle it admirably. You stayed away from the glaciers. Glaciers? No, icebergs and glaciers if you got really close to shore.
Okay, we're ready to start.
Yeah, you got 24 seconds left. I'm using the stopwatch.
Well, my clock says it's 10 seconds late, so I'm going to start. This is N5BB, and by fiat, I am net control for the Afterglow net this evening. This is a net run, a sponsor of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Any amateur radio operator can check in on Echolink or on RF. And I'm getting ready to check into the Echolink so I can handle all the crazies over there. So it's working on it right now. Come on, computer. So this net meets every Saturday night at roughly 10:30 p.m. after Skynet finishes to talk about a fine flick. Tom, do you want to do the honors and describe in your own style what this film was about? KE5ICX and 5BB.
Sure, Bill, I can do that, and I'll give my usual narrative, and then I'll just add a little tiny bit to it, since it's so good. So here's what I gave it Skynet, but you may not have heard it. Elliot couldn't believe what was happening. His friend E.T. got punched in the nose and shoved in a school locker. The bully, Eli, was an 11-year-old who stole lunch money from everyone, even extraterrestrials. EJ grabbed the money, and a whimpering E.T. heart glow faded inside the locker's darkness. EJ ran to a nearby space center. He knew he could shake down a couple of astronauts. He wore a hard hat, fake security badge, and carried a toolbox. Suckers, thought EJ, as he quickly walked past security. He reached the elevator and asked a workman, "What floor are the astronauts on?" The man answered, "I think they're on the top. Turn right and knock on the door with the porthole." EJ reached the spacecraft and knocked on the door. "Candygram," he shouted, and the hatch slowly opened. That's the way stowaway to 1975, and I put this warning in. This movie makes the Star Wars Christmas special look like Emmy Award-winning stuff. Yes, and Pete Conrad, a real astronaut. Yep, yeah, that guy. That Pete Conrad went to the moon and everything. He's in this thing. I think he was also the guy that did the astronaut talk through all of this, because there was some stuff in there that was good, but it didn't make any sense with what we were seeing on screen. So this was a made-for-TV movie in 1975. It was on CBS. I think it only ran once. I don't even know if they got through the entire 2 hours. They may have canceled it before they even got that far. So there you have it. Got an 11-year-old kid that stows away on board an Apollo spacecraft. How the hell you do that? I'm not so sure. And that's the biggest Apollo spacecraft you've ever seen. It's even got stuff in it that the standard Apollo spacecraft wouldn't have, like cardboard walls. But I won't go. I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to you, Bill. This is KE5I6.
Well, very good, Tom. So that's what's going on. So let's take check-ins. So I'll accept check-ins to Afterglow. All I need is your call sign and name. And did you see the movie? Again, for those of you who have forgotten, the movie is the 1975 made-for-TV flick, Stowaway to the Moon. That's right, Stowaway to the Moon. Didn't think it was possible, didn't you? Please check in now in 5BB. Go ahead.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen in North Garland, and yes, I saw the movie.
Man, it's so quiet. Okay, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville. Of course I saw the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto, and yes, I saw the movie.
Where are our regulars? I see a few regulars and a few miscellaneous people on Echolink, but nobody's making any comment. I recognize KE5ICX Pop. Yes, he saw the movie. In G5Y, hello, Alan. Yes, you saw the movie. WB5OZL at the south end of the county. Brenda, yes, you saw the movie also. Did anybody else see the movie? In 5BB, Afterglow, go ahead.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay No Everett, I've seen 2/3 of the film.
Very good, Jake. KG5BZW. Jay saw 2/3 of it, which is plenty sufficient to make a good, to get a good feeling one way or another about this movie. I'd say you see 2/3 of it, you got a good feeling for it. Although, and I think that if you only watch the first few minutes of the movie, that you you might feel totally different about it than if you watched, more of the movie. I thought the first part of the movie was poorly done, personally. Anyway, do we have anybody else that would like to check into Afterglow? This is N5BB. Do we have people in Norman, Oklahoma that want to check in? Wow, Tom, where is everybody tonight? It's not Halloween yet. Did people, were people confused on their calendars? And they're out trick-or-treating a week early? I'll give it one more try before we start going through the list here. Does anybody want to make any Afterglow comments? Does anybody want to check in? The movie was Stowaway to the Moon. This is N5BB, Afterglow Net. Please check in now.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Kilo Uniform. Did not see the movie.
Okay, I sincerely apologize. I've forgotten your name.
Oh, sorry, Bill. It's David Mesquite.
David, the moment you say it, it all comes back. But, there's so many calls on these nets that sometimes my poor brain can't get it organized correctly. The cards stick together in my card file. KG5UKU. David did not see it. Do we have anybody else that would like to check into Afterglow? This is N5BB. Well, I guess let's start, even though this may turn out to be pretty quick. Tom, why don't you go first this time rather than last? Why don't you tell us what you thought about the plot of this movie, N5BB, Afterglow?
Well, thank you, Bill. And, Brenda finds these films, but she finds them on Facebook. We do the nets, right? But Spenguli is the program on ETV that shows all sorts of crazy movies. Some of them we reviewed, but they also have a Facebook page, and they share movies on the Facebook page. They have a movie thing they do, and it tells me, and then I find the movie, and I go, wow, that's interesting. This is one of those films. And so Stowaway to the Moon, and I found it on YouTube. That's where they shared it from, and they watched it together. And at any rate, that's sometimes the source of these things. Although Brenda actually found this one, I'm pretty sure. I'm positive she did. The idea, she says, stop it. No, I'm not. But the idea of a kid being able to hide inside of a command module, now I've got my own full-size command module. Well, on Sundays I do. And there's not enough room to shove an 11-year-old kid any place inside of the thing, much less a trash can. There are no trash cans. There's a urine dump system, but it's not really very big. So that doesn't work for him. So getting him on board is a little bit of a problem. It has elements of a command module in it, and as such, the astronauts are there and trying to do their thing. I should probably hold off because the astronauts are the most embarrassing thing about the whole thing. Thing launches, they say they're 80-something pounds overweight. I don't know how the heck you can measure how much weight a spacecraft has when it's millions and millions of pounds, but I don't know. And knowing 87 pounds or whatever it was, 84, 87 pounds overweight. How they could figure that out so exactly. They said in a Star Trek episode once. So, I don't know. It just seemed rather odd, the fact that he could get on board the spacecraft by wearing a hard hat and a lunch and a toolbox and overalls and not look like an 11-year-old 87-pound kid. I have no idea. Lloyd Bridges is there. He plays Capcom, and he did everything that you would expect him to do as far as explaining how to take care of everything. Apparently, this is what gave him his gateway to Airplane and other movies. But he was very good at describing what to do. And the kid, well, I don't, you know, it's interactive. It's kind of hard to explain specifically with the plot because there wasn't a lot going on as far as what you're looking at. There's scenes with standard footage that you would get. It was kind of a ship-in-a-bottle episode. Everything was inside the command module with them talking to the kid. There's the occasional flashback with, I forget who the guy was. Somebody said, I don't know. Who was it? I'm looking. I don't see it here. At any rate, some actor that we're supposed to know with the guy that lives in the swamp. That made no sense to me either. What's the deal with the swamp? And going back and visiting the guy. That was important to the two kids, including EJ. Brenda says John Carradine. I liked him. Last time I saw him, before that, he was painted blue. So John Carradine, the weird guy in the swamp, he was probably the best actor of the whole bunch. And then Pete Conrad, who's the astronaut in all of this. Pete was well known for his Apollo 12 mission, commanding Apollo 12 and walking on the moon. I think was probably also part of this whole thing with the narrative, at least having to do with some of the technical aspects, were correct, even though everything that we're showing was wrong. And they couldn't get Walter Cronkite to do his role, so they didn't have a big budget, so they made him kind of the announcer. He's a very bad actor. He's a great astronaut, but a bad actor. So that kind of knocked you out of the little bit of reality seemed to be going on in the thing. The astronauts are talking back and forth with the kid, and he's really smart, as you would expect him to be, and he can fly the spacecraft and do all these things. Definitely kind of a kid's program, although it was on in the evening. I think this could have been done a lot better if they eliminated the kid, the spacecraft, the Saturn V, and Pete Conrad, and put in trained chimps. I think probably would have made it work a lot better, and it would have been more convincing. I'll stop now. I have lots of comments about the acting, such as it was. KE5I6.
Well, thank you, Tom. Okay, let's move on to Alan, NG5Y. Alan, you say you saw the movie. What do you think about the plot? This is Inside BB.
Well, I saw this as a child, and I watched it again today. And, you know, it's got its obvious plot holes, but I actually enjoyed this film today. It was a nice Saturday afternoon movie. I thought that all the filming made the capsule look very voluminous and lots of room, when indeed I think if you were actually in the capsule you would be very claustrophobic, or at least I would. But I enjoyed the movie. I thought that the use of stock footage and using lots and lots of reused actual NASA footage written in there was kind of cheesy and made the whole thing a little bit cheaper, but, you know, it is a made-for-TV movie, so what do you expect? Back to net, NG51.
Well, very good, Alan. Okay, Brenda, now it's your turn. WB5OZL. Plot. This is in 5BB.
Oh, goody. This is WB5OZL. Where do I start? This is so lame. I'm pretty familiar with an Apollo command module, and there's no room for a kid. In the Apollo 7, these guys, were stepping all over each other. There was a little cot down there where they could take turns sleeping, and, you didn't sleep at once. Like in this, it was pretty ridiculous. It's not what you do. Somebody has to keep watch. Wow. How did they weigh the command module to tell it had a child in it? That was kind of unbelievable, too, and really not very important to the plot. That Pete Conrad sequence, I don't think he was in this movie. I think NASA had this stuff was probably in public domain where he did some bits on TV to tell you how the Apollo spacecraft worked. I don't think he came anywhere near this movie, but I guess they paid him a little money for it. Who knows? Vacuum cleaners in space. Never in my life thought of vacuuming up vomit. I almost turned the movie off at this point. But boy, this kid was talented. Not only could he vacuum vomit, he could fly the spacecraft. He found the lost astronauts. The little tiny bit about turning the wrong switch and everything going to heck. Well, but he's a hero because he saved everybody. I didn't understand the rationale for putting him in the limb. Because he's incident expendable, I guess. I don't know. Then they brought down the moon rocks, and it looked like it weighed about 3 pounds. And I think the Apollo 11 brought back something like 80 pounds, and subsequent missions brought more. The purpose of this whole thing was to go get rocks, and the people were just there to drive the bus. Getting the rocks was the important thing. And they kind of made it clear to them. Say, we kind of don't care if you come back, but make sure the rocks get here. And what else? I'll have more to say later. WB50ZL.
Well, very good, Brenda. Good comment. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, you said you've seen at least 2/3 of it. What do you think about the plot? This is in 5BB.
This is KG5BZW. Of course I have to turn off the radio because it's directed. Distracted me, sorry. Yeah, the whole thing is just kind of silly, and it's honestly, I've seen, I would say there's a lot worse movies we've had on this that we've reviewed. Because I didn't really hate it, although I also kind of knew what to expect. I don't know. I don't really. I'd love to know what prompted this movie's creation. Was it somebody trying to, I don't know, drum up support for NASA or something? Because it almost seems kind of like something like that. Even this, there's clearly things wrong with the whole. I mean, well, I guess there's a reason why they named the spacecraft as they were, not Apollo, but I forgot what the name of it was. How much this movie meant to me. I'm already forgetting details. Yeah, there's. I don't know. I really don't know. The whole, the whole subplot to actually get him on there was a little bit silly. That looks like an employee. Yeah, the 11-year-old is. I mean, they're short guys. But even as a short guy, we'd probably be a little bit more stocky. It's a film I really don't want to think too much about. I don't hate it or anything like that. I just don't really care one way or another. It's a film. KG5BCW.
Okay, Jay. Very good. I agree with you. I don't hate it, but it wasn't all that good. Okay. Now, David, KG5UKU. You say you didn't see the movie, but do you have any general comments? Do you even know what the movie was about? This is N5BB. Go ahead, David.
Well, excuse me. No, I did not see the movie, and from what I've heard, it sounds like that's a good thing.
Well, okay. This is N5BB and Afterglow. Does anyone else want to check in? We are discussing the made-for-TV movie Stowaway to the Moon from 1975. Would anybody else like to check in before we continue? This is N5BB with Afterglow.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo. This is Sean, and yes, I did see the movie.
Okay, Sean, I have forgotten the second letter of your call. Give me the prefix of your call again.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo.
Okay, Kilo Bravo 9. SOQ. Very good, Sean. Sounds like you did see the movie. What do you think about the plot?
I gotta pretty much agree with the group. It's pretty rough. About halfway through the movie, I was just about ready to shut it off because it was pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty far-fetched. I think everybody pretty well said that. The one thing I did notice too, and then I'm sure everybody did, was it seemed like they really weren't weightless at all most of the time. You could tell that they didn't even do that very well. But yeah, no, it was pretty bad. And I didn't understand the ending at all either, why they ended up in the swamp. Seemed kind of strange. But anyway, that's all I got. KB9SOK.
Okay. Very good. So this is N5BB with Afterglow. Does anyone else want to check in to our net? my turn to make comments about plot. I pretty much agree with what's been said. My feel as I was watching the movie, my emotions about it, initially, the first few minutes, I was just about ready to stop it because it looked like it was going to be really corny. The kids going up and saying they're going to break in, essentially, to the Kennedy Space Center, he's going to go over to the launch derrick, of all things, the launch tower, and with his little lunch pail thing, he's going to climb up there with his little hard hat and his made-up security badge, and he's going to somehow get in there and somehow find some way of getting into the hatch and stowing away. And there was no indication that he knew where he was going. As far as I could see, there was nothing in advance that he had researched to know what he was going to do when he got inside. If there was, they didn't show that. It would have made it more interesting. So originally, and the other thing I thought that was so corny was his dad going over and nearly running down the security guard, yelling and jumping up and down, and the security guard should have shot his tires out or something. I don't know. They should have put him in jail. But I thought that was over the top. I mean, he could have used a telephone or something, called the police maybe, not decided to drive. Hattiesville is nearby, but he didn't have to drive from their house right into the NASA facility. By the way, the place he came in reminds me of the security gate, which goes to the contractors on the south side. You go in past where the big tour ships, the Carnival and all those cruise boats come in, and you drive past that, if I remember correctly, up to where that security area is. So I think I've been down that road before. Anyway, but later in the movie, I actually started to like it a little better because it seemed to me like they toned it down a little, and the acting wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't good, but it was sufficient. Early on, when I saw that Lloyd Bridges was in it, and I saw who he was going to be, the flight director, I nearly thought it was going to go off the rails because of Lloyd Bridges was going to get some, and he nearly did go off the rails. They made him initially appear like he was a really, really strict guy. But later in the movie, they toned that down to make him look like a much better guy. So to me, there were a lot of things in the movie, it looked to me nearly like one guy was directing it, and then into the movie, maybe a third of the way in, somebody else came in and kind of started fixing things. Now, what might have happened was they filmed a lot of stuff, and they threw out all the bad stuff, and they didn't have enough shots up in the first part to throw very much away. I don't know. But anyway, that was my feeling, was that as opposed to some movies that start out okay and just kind of go nowhere, to me, this one started out dangerously out of control, and it kind of got better during the movie. I thought the plot was kind of interesting. The fact that the kid actually did get to do some things to help him, but they didn't go completely crazy. if they had had the kid in there completely driving the capsule and the other guy was dead or unconscious, but they didn't do that. He was assisted at a few places. And so I think I don't know if they had to do with the original story or with the screenplay or the directing, but however they picked it, I thought that it was toned down enough that it was acceptable. Even though it was corny, it was acceptable. It wasn't too corny. And I think that by the end, Lloyd Bridges was okay, his character, and the other characters were kind of okay. I was a little worried when they were first taking off. One of the characters was acting like a country bumpkin. Hee-haw, here we go. And I thought that's characterization, but I thought that was going to go crazy during the movie, but it was toned down also. So again, to me, it seemed like the movie was out of control, and during the middle of the movie, they fixed a bunch of things that made the rest of the movie survive. That's what I thought. And one other thing. This is N5BB Afterglow. Brenda said something about the LEM. Why did they move the kid into there? Well, Brenda, the reason is a valve was stuck. They couldn't close it completely, and they were outgassing atmosphere from the main capsule. The three astronauts had their spacesuits with their stupid helmets, which I'm assuming Tom will comment about the helmets and everything after a while. But the three astronauts had their spacesuits, so they could get up and they could get the oxygen directly through the hoses, so they could depressurize the main capsule with no problems. But they couldn't do that with a kid in there. They had to find somewhere to put him that wouldn't depressurize because of that leak. And the only place they could do that was in the LEM. So I understood that. Okay. So enough for the plot. Let's move now to characterization. Characterization. Tom, what say you in 5BB?
Well, thank you, Bill. This is KE5ICX. Let's see. Characterization. The kids' parents were pretty stupid. Sorry, they were dumber than a box of rocks, but they managed to get into the Space Center, which apparently anybody can do when you think about it, because the kid gets on a trip to the moon, and they get onto the thing without so much as a boo. I agree with you on the astronaut thing. As it started out, they were pretty obnoxious. You got to have the bumpkin with the hee-haw going on, and that was annoying to me. The kid wasn't too bad. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. No problems there. Lloyd Bridges played his character like Lloyd Bridges plays all his characters, the descriptive father type. He was okay. P. Conrad played a country bumpkin Oh, wait a minute. He is an astronaut. Oh, never mind. I guess the guy doing the hee-haw was okay. One of the things I thought was really funny is that I don't know where they found the model for him to use. It's like this 1/12 scale S4B. This thing is the size of a cannon. And he's pulling out the command module and turning it around during transposition and docking. Yeah, this is how you do it. And he's pulling this thing apart. Walter Cronkite was, Mr. Crazy when it came to space stuff, but at least he used models that you could actually, hold in your hands. This thing you got to put under your arm in order to actually show what's going on. That was absolutely crazy, and but he managed to do it. He was getting everything working the way it was supposed to. So I guess that was okay. Lack of acting in this thing was a problem. John Carradine, who I can't find in the thing, he was the best. The Swamp Man, he was actually a fairly decent actor. The character was okay. I don't know what he had to do with the price of tea in China or sending people into space, but he seemed okay. The astronauts, I will agree with you. You've persuaded me. I think they toned it down later on because the opening was kind of not that great with all of the people acting over the top. Once the missions got going, it was okay. The astronauts acted in a better way. I mean, it wasn't like Gene Hackman in Maroon, where he's like, I can't breathe, I have to get out, and then ejects himself towards the sun. That's a pretty stupid command module pilot. He was in the command module pilot position, by the way, in case you want to know. What can I say about the rest of it and the acting? Not a lot. I'm trying to figure out who... I may not have anything else. No, I don't. Not on that. I've got some comments about Little Dipper and all that. I guess I don't have a lot to say about the characterizations because there really wasn't much there except kind of the standard stereotype kids and the astronauts and, Lloyd Bridges playing Lloyd Bridges. So I'll stop now. KE5ICX.
Yep. Very good, Tom. Alan, NG5Y, what say ye about characterization? This is in 5BB.
Well, I think probably they spent a lot of their budget on Lloyd Bridges being in there, and somehow having him in the movie was supposed to make it believable and having a name brand actor in the movie. But I thought that Michael Link, the young actor who was supposedly the stowaway, thought he did his part of the movie well. Like I said, I enjoyed the movie. It had its plot holes, but compared to some of the other movies we watched lately, I thought this one was rather fun. NG5Y back to net.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do, Alan. It may not have been a grade A movie, but it was more fun than some of the other movies. Brenda, WB5OZL, what do you think about the characterizations? This is in 5BB with Afterlove.
Yeah, this is WB5OZL. Yeah, it had spaceships in it, and we all like space. I mean, it would be nearly as good a movie if it was about steamboats or something. It's sad. I'm such a fanatic for airplanes and spaceships. I'll watch anything. And I did not pick this movie. I never heard of it before. Tom does this every week, and it's never my fault. Okay, characters. The kid and his parents look like they belong on the set of Deliverance. These look like really inbred people. It's just something very strange looking about them. Although even so, the kid was bright. Maybe he was just a savant and not really bright in all ways, just bright in some ways. And I love it, the father. Every time he opened his mouth, I'm the head of the English department at the so-and-so high school. It's like, so what? It means something to anybody? I didn't get that part. The astronauts were very, generic and stupid. So, no astronauts are that stupid. They generally astronauts can use a lot of numbers and sciencey terms and checklists, and also they've got killer sense of humor, most of them, and more or less professional unless they're playing some of those stupid practical jokes, and they do. But when it comes to flying the ship, they are dead on serious. This is, really serious business. But these guys are just like, it's like they're riding a bus, just kind of sitting there most of the time. Let's see, characters. You just wonder sometimes when you see somebody like John Carradine in a movie. It's like, did they have pictures or something? Why would he be in this movie? He probably, if he needed money, they probably couldn't afford him. He probably did this as a favor to somebody or as some kind of a trade-off, as they often do. If you will be in this turkey for me, I'll give you a plum roll next year. And otherwise, I can't explain it. Why would anybody sign up for a movie like this? Or maybe they were lied to about how good the movie was going to be. So they never told us the number of this movie, but I figure if Apollo 17 was in 1972, this probably would have been Apollo 25 in 1975, or 24, something like that. But they never told us what the number was. That's all I have to say about characters. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Well, thank you, Brenda. Next, let's try David, KG5UKU. David, I know you didn't see it. Do you want to make any more comments, or is that it? N5BB.
Yeah, this is KG5UKU. It sounds like it could have been a good movie, a good story, and like you said, poorly directed, just poorly made movie. That's about all I have to say. KG5UKU.
Okay, thank you, David. Sean, KB9SOK, what do you think about the characterization? This is N5BB.
Yeah, I agree with the group, and you convinced me as well that, the second half of the movie did have a different feel with the characterization, so it does seem like what you said. I didn't notice that initially, but now thinking back in the movie, I think you're dead on that. It does seem like a different director or somebody took over. So, yeah, in some respects, I guess the characterization did improve. I still wouldn't call the acting great by any means, and like a lot of people said, I think the old guy was probably the best part of it as far as acting goes. And he said the kid was okay too, I guess, being an 11-year-old. But yeah, I don't really have nothing to add to the conversation. So this is KB9SOK. Return it back to net control.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Does anyone else want to check into the Afterglow movie? This is N5BB. Nothing heard. Moving along. Characterization. My turn. Well, first, some comments about things other people said. Pete Conrad. I think the only reason that was in there was so they could put on the credits and on the the advertising on TV talking about what they were going to show for this made-for-TV movie, saying an astronaut was going to be playing in it. There was a real astronaut in it. So they dumped him in there, gave him something to do that he couldn't screw up too badly, and he kind of sat there at the table and moved through it. You know, I don't even remember exactly what he did. He was sitting there at a desk, kind of giving some kind of news about it, but it was very forgettable. If they had been able to get Walter Cronkite to come in and give some kind of, or one of the other major, you know, Chet Huntley or somebody, if they'd been able to get one of the major newscasters to actually get filmed on there, making something reasonable looking, it would have added a lot to the movie, I think. But they threw that in there, I think, just to have an astronaut. I think they checked it off their list, and it made the producers happy. As far as John Carradine being the Swamp Man, you know, John Carradine was in a lot of things. I went and double-checked this. He was in 233 regular film movies. He then had a bunch of television roles, and I can't even, Wikipedia doesn't even list the made-for-TV movies. So this is an additional to the 233, you know, regular films he made. So he was very prolific. He was in anything, in everything. So, you know, they threw that in there, I think, as some filler material so they could get his name in the credits also. They wanted some names in there. They got Lloyd Bridges, John Carradine, who had made films back in the 30s. So they had those two big names in there. They had an astronaut, Pete Conrad. So they didn't have to worry about having any other known actors in the movie. They already had Lloyd Bridges and John Carradine, and then they had the astronaut Pete Conrad. That's all they needed for a made-for-TV movie. That's great. So I think that's why they threw those scenes in there. And he was kind of like the Zen master of the swamp near the Kennedy Space Center. Supposedly, the land that the Space Center was built on, he used to live on it or something. I don't know. Again, that was filler material that, to me, didn't add too much, but it kind of distracted you from the rest of it because they had no more plot and no more characterization. In other words, do you know anything about the astronauts? Anything at all? I don't even remember their names. I just remember that one of those three astronauts that are in the capsule, was very obnoxious early on. I don't remember their names. I don't know nothing about them. We didn't see any of their family members. They didn't say they didn't, you know, get on the radio and say, "Hey, my son or my wife, I may not come back because I'm really sick." None of that. So, as far as characterizations, I think they did a really bad job. And I agree with, I think it was Brenda that said this, the astronauts in this weren't very serious. They didn't seem to be really flying the spacecraft that much. They did a few things in there, but it didn't look like they were doing much, you know? When they got on the moon, they were doing a few things, but they just threw a few scenes in there. Anyway, let's see, what else? I agree that the kid's parents, in particular his dad, were zonkers, crazy, and over the top. And then, of course, Lloyd Bridges was Lloyd Bridges. And I really, again, think that up until after they discovered the kid. In other words, after they discovered it was public knowledge, that after that part of the movie, everything is, to me, much toned down than before that point. To me, it nearly looks like two different directors, or somebody came in and slapped the director around a little bit and said, "Hey, come on, let's kind of calm this down a little bit." And that's all my comments about characterization. Now, do we have any? It's a science fiction film. It was about an Apollo mission to the moon. There were real live images of the moon. There were mock-ups of Apollo capsules. There were shots from people turning knobs and things. So let's talk about special effects. Tom, I don't know about the roll pattern, and you've already commented about the space capsule couldn't be big enough for somebody else in it. But what do you think about the special effects? This is Inside BB and Afterglow.
Well, Bill, I was getting up to speed for this very section, and I found that the special effects, the guy who actually did them, is uncredited. He's not in the movie, even having done any of it, which I thought was quite interesting because, you know, that does take some time to do that. Mostly everything was stock footage from random missions. Most of them were from the J missions, the later ones, 15, 16, and 17, but not all. And that kind of helped it, except that when they shoved the kid up into the lunar module, their transition shot, or what they call an establishing shot, where you go to another scene or time has passed, they show a command module with no lunar module attached. That's because you're using stock footage and you only got a camera in each vehicle, which means the only time you're ever going to see it is when they're unattached. And that kind of was weird. Now, I did check. There was a technical advisor on the film, Joseph W. Schmidt. I looked him up. We know him, we just don't know his name. He's the guy that suited up all the astronauts all the time. He's repeated over and over again. The Reynolds, the Norman Rockwell pictures that you see, or the paintings that he did, it has Schmidt in one of them. I think the Apollo 11 one. I have to go back and look and see. But he suited up all the astronauts. So, you mentioned the suits. I have to say, overall, the suits actually were pretty good. More realistic than you would get for most made-for-TV movies, and I think Schmidt probably had something to do with that. I'm not quite sure. The fishbowl helmets had something not quite right about them, but the suit and the locking ring and all of that was correct. They had gone to the red rings rather than the blue rings after Apollo 11. In fact, they were in transition at that point because they had changed the gasket system, locking system, when they went from the blue to the red rings. Yeah, I know that. So that was interesting. The command module, I mentioned this earlier, it was too big. They shoved some stuff in it. I think this was a 20th Century Fox production because it did have some of the folks who in the background who had done stuff for 20th Century. So they had access to a few things. One of the things I noticed is to fill space in this absolutely gigantic command module, there was a blinking switch thing up in the corner near one of the windows. And I recognize that as from the Sage 7, which was a computer system that was used by the Air Force back in the 50s, believe it or not, late 50s, I guess. And it had And the reason I know that is it was used as a prop frequently on television shows and movies, as late as Lost, which had a retro 70s thing that they did in one of the seasons. Anyway, it's most known, this stupid switch is best known from Lost in Space, when the Dr. Smith tries in the pilot to turn the thing off, and he doesn't quite do it, and rushes to get out of the spacecraft, and the robot goes and turns it to an on position. It really is a power supply switch. That's what it was used for on the Stage 7 systems, to turn on their slant panels. So yeah, that's unnecessarily detailed, but I did notice it was kind of a cool looking switch. One thing I thought that was interesting, and it really proved the fact that this was a bad movie, is that here's the opportunity when they're going back to Earth. They're going to finally land, and there's going to be this big parade, and we're going to see all this, and the kid's going to be meet with the president, and I'm sorry, we're out of money. So what we get is we're going to go back to Earth, and then we see the end, or I don't even think they could afford the end to be projected on the screen. So that didn't happen. So I don't know. It was kind of strange that way. So special effects, not much. The ones that we got, not much. Now the panel, I will tell you this, there was a panel that was awkwardly put in to create this whole extra area that doesn't exist. The 12-foot panel that's inside of the command module, that looks to me like what they call Block 1, which is an early version for the command module. They use a Block 2 on all the missions after the fire. So somehow they found one of those in a closet somewhere, dragged it in and put it up. So it looks like a legit panel, but it was just never used on, it was for Apollo, but never used on any of the manned Apollo missions. So I imagine I've bored you all to death. At the museum, the same thing happens. The kids try and gnaw their arm off and get away from me when I'm trying to explain all this in excruciating detail. So I'll stop now. Wait. Patrick Williams did the music for this, and he won Emmys for his work in television. I thought the score was pretty good. Let me reset. It was a minimalistic score, but really it added something to a movie that needed something added to it, and I thought that they did a pretty good job with it. It has that stylistic sound to it, this similar type of thing. In fact, I thought it was done by the same composer, but it was not, to Colossus, the Foreman Project. Had that same kind of vibe to it, which I always liked. But in any case, I thought Patrick Williams did a pretty good job on that. Overall, mediocre. It probably didn't have a big budget. All sorts of stock footage from different missions. But I think, yeah, it's a made-for-TV movie. Cardboard sets. Back to you, KE5I6.
Well, thank you, Tom. Okay, Alan, in G5Y, what do you say about the special effects? This is in 5DB.
Well, they had the whole scene where they talked about being weightless, but throughout the entire movie, with the exception of the little boy, EJ, no one ever appeared to be weightless in any way, shape, or form. They had some over-exaggerated movements where they were supposedly weightless, but they really didn't spend any money at all on special effects, in my opinion. NG5Y back to now.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head there, Alan. Brenda, what do you say about special effects? This is in 5DB.
This is WB50ZL. Well, the special effects and the stock footage were pretty good. They weren't special effects. They were real. What was really unrealistic is that the spacecraft the CM was so big inside. There's no way they could reach the control panels. That's why they're cramped. Is you're sitting there and you have to reach over there and flip this switch and push that button and read that dial, and you're going to have this stuff right up next to you. So, and that's why I felt like they were just riding a bus. They didn't do anything. They're very passive. And maybe I heard it wrong, but they landed on the far side of the moon. Did I read that one right?
No, I think they just went around it. They talked about being around it, so they couldn't communicate with the Earth. But no, I don't think they landed on the far side. They landed on the Earth side, I'm sure, inside BB.
Okay, but Tom tells me they talked on the far side, which, I mean, everybody knows you're in a communications blackout when you're on the far side of the moon because you got the moon in the way. So, that part was not quite right. That kid, he acted for about 10 years in minor things that nobody ever heard of, and I don't know what happened to him. He might have been a wino in an alley somewhere, but it looks like he just quit acting, and you can't even find a picture of him on IMDb. I don't know what the story is. Happened to a lot of child actors. What else with special effects? Yeah, I didn't get the feeling that we were in a real spacecraft. Just didn't have enough gadgets and gizmos in there. These things are just packed full, and this one wasn't. But I guess that was a budgetary thing. Made-for-TV movies never have a good budget, and that's why usually they're not very good. All right, I'll quit. WB50ZL.
Okay, Brenda. By the way, they didn't actually talk on the far side of the moon. That was actually a plot device where the signal went away. You heard it go away as they were talking, so you may have missed that. But I think they treated that okay, actually. Okay, special effects. What do you say, Jay? What about special effects? KG5BZW and 5BB.
KG5BZW. Somehow I think I was skipped on characters, but I don't think I really have anything to say on the characters anyway, so I don't know that they did too bad, given it's, TV movie, and it wasn't really, it ain't sci-fi. This is, I don't know what genre it fits under it, but it doesn't really fit sci-fi to me. A new, different spacecraft or whatever, and like I mentioned earlier, it's not Apollo mission. It's the name that I completely forget. Yeah, of course, it looks a lot like a Apollo spacecraft, but they named it differently, so it's a bigger, new, improved cabin or whatever. I'm making that up. Golly, there's really, the stock footage, I can't really think of anything. You do have some moments where they try to look at the weightless, where they go to the WEM, and when they're first talking to the kid, and it's only the kid that's really looking way near weightless. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. I mean, I may have missed something because I didn't get the last part of the film, but anyway, I'm going to turn it over to the next person. KG5 BTW.
Thank you, Jay. Next, KG5 UKU, David. Any final comments? This is N5BB. I think David's probably fallen off. Okay, Sean, KB9SOK. What do you think about special effects? This is N5BB.
There were special effects? Oh, just kidding. Not really much to add. Just what everybody else has said about it. But then again, what do you expect for 1975 TV-made movie? I guess you can't really expect a whole lot there. The one scene that I did kind of thought was pretty bad, and maybe wasn't the best idea of the director, was there towards the end when the kid was trying to push one of the buttons above him on that panel overhead. You could clearly see that it wasn't even a button. It was just, either a piece of cardboard or plastic, and it didn't move or anything. So it might not have been a good idea to zoom in on that. They probably should have stayed away. But other than that, not a whole lot to add. KB9 is okay. Back to net control.
Yeah. It appeared to me that he pushed it 2 times or something, like an extra time. Okay, thank you. Let's see, it's my turn. This is N5BB. First, do we have anybody who wants to check in late here to the Afterglow movie? We're discussing Stowaway to the Moon, a 1975 movie, television movie, made for TV. Anybody want to check in? This is N5BB.
Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Norman just listening in and probably about to check out. Just want to say hello. K5 Station.
Oh, very good, John. We saw you lurking over there on Echolink. Okay, it's my turn to make some comments here. We're getting down near the end. Yes, the waitlist situation. Who was it? Alan? I think you made comments about that. I agree with you completely. At some point during the movie, there were a few scenes for a few minutes where all the characters seemed to kind of hold their arms in midair and move them very slowly, and their motions were kind of, it's what you would imagine doing if you're moving in slow motion. If you remember the How Many $1 Million Man was it? That TV show. I can't remember how many $1 million it was, but so many $1 Million Man. Or some of those other similar TV programs, old programs, when the character was going fast, they would make it appear to move very slowly. Well, that's what it looked like. The characters are doing these slow, exaggerated motions. Didn't look at all like weightlessness to me, but I guess it was better than nothing. But they could have taken some strings or something, or some editing. They could have done something to make it look better. I think they made minimal and there was nothing floating in the cabin. You didn't get to see them, let a pencil loose and watch it float. If they'd done something like that with the kid, he would have said, oh, wow. He would have been very excited, A kid of that age, he should be seeing something moving around in the capsule. You saw zero of that. Zero. So I don't think they even made an attempt to do that kind of special effect. and then they just took, I don't know if the scenes they had on the moon's surface, I don't know, I can't remember now. I have to remember. I can't remember, was that actual footage of astronauts, or did they do some kind of special effect to overlay them? I can't remember if their spacesuits looked correct or not. Maybe Tom will remember. I am looking at a a capture of one of the astronauts sitting there in his seat, and they had these weird bubble helmets that didn't look like an Apollo helmet to me at all. Apollo helmets had this, they were only transparent in the front of the helmet, and back near the top and the rear and the sides back there were solid. But the helmets they were wearing were, on this movie, were just these black fishbowl. These clear fishbowls. They were rather large over their head. And I think they did that just so they could film it easily, and they could, probably, there was maybe less glare, they could see their faces easier, etc. But that part didn't look realistic to me. The rest of the spacesuit looked reasonable, and when he tried to put the helmet on, the kid did, it didn't look like he locked it. He kind of fiddled with it up there, but he didn't make a serious, it didn't look to me like a serious effort to latch the helmet. Kind of the same on the gloves. He kind of shoved them on there, but didn't seem to me there was a serious effort to really seal them up. The rest of it, as far as special effects, was kind of okay. You know, I could, if I get rid of the disbelief about the size of the capsule, I could believe that those were Apollo instruments. I mean, it was filmed in 1975, right at the end of the Apollo missions. And so, you know, they were using something from that time, and so all the things looked like they were period because they were filmed right when it was supposed to have happened. You know, they didn't make much effort to really, you know, show the spacecraft from outside on the moon or things of that nature. They threw a few little shots in there, but I think they didn't want to throw very many of those shots in there, or people would have noticed, hey, that's Neil Armstrong setting foot down, or something like that. They only threw a few little, you know, real shots like that on the moon in there. I don't know about the plot device of them not knowing where they landed. The way I understood that plot device is they had a communication problem, and because of that, Mission Control was unsure about the exact landing location. I don't understand exactly why. You'd have thought they'd have a record on the spacecraft for, you know, how long they were moving and what direction and everything. But I was a little confused by that, the lack of knowing where they were. You would have thought they could have figured out some other way of figuring that out. I guess that's all the special effects thing. There really weren't many what we normally think of as special effects. They didn't try to do any. Okay, I guess it's time for the final close-up. Do we have any last comments about the movie from anybody? If so, please come in with your call sign. This is Inside BB.
KE5I6.
Go right ahead, Tom.
The spacesuit's the A7L suit, which is what you're talking about. I think it looked pretty good. I agree with you. Probably they could have done a better job as far as, attachments or doing the bits of business to suggest that it was a little more complicated than what it was. I think, now the thing is, the fishbowl is the fishbowl. It's a fishbowl helmet. And what you have in the back is a pad. The pad is so that your head could rest up against the back of it. When you're sitting with that helmet on and you're going to orbit, you have about almost 3 Gs with a Saturn V. I think it was. I got to remember 3 to 5 Gs. So you need something there to brace the back of your helmet because of the way the helmet was designed. I think you're right, though. There's something not quite right about the fishbowl helmet itself. It may have been made a little bit bigger, maybe perhaps because of claustrophobia, or it filmed better. I don't know. I'll probably do a side-by-side on it just to see. There's something not quite right about it, but as far as the rest of the suit, it looked okay. Everything about it was reasonable. The only thing that wasn't right probably was the headset that they used. They used the bunny, the bunny helmet. This clock is going nuts. This is one of the clocks that's going nuts, telling me what time it is. Let me reset. So thank you. So it's okay. They do a pretty good job with it overall. Could they have done a little better job? Yeah. But watch any movie, see Earth to the Moon or anything else, and you'll see you can do a really good job with it. Or For All Mankind, which is the latest series to come out, that's pretty good. They've done a good job with that, I think. The suits look very authentic. Okay, that's it from me. KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom. I may be confused about the helmet sitting there when they're in the spacecraft, and then when they put the visor, there's some kind of other thing I think they put on, which had a visor that came down and that shielded the back of their head. It looked like it was on the outside of the helmet. And I'm looking through some images here on a web search, and I see the regular clear helmet, but then I see when they're actually out doing something on the moon or something, they've got this other like thermal barrier around the top and sides of their head, and they've got the visor that comes down. So is there an external piece that goes on outside their helmet? How does that work, Tom?
No, you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. It's a cowl they put over the top of the fishbowl helmet. And the idea was that you can't have two spacesuits, one for the moon and one for going to orbit and re-entry. The whole idea was that you wanted to be flexible. They also had slippers. You'll see that the spacesuits, the actual foot part of the spacesuit has a standard heel on it, believe it or not. But when they walked on the moon, they put these slippers on that went over the top of that. So, and that helped protect stuff as well. So that's how it worked. You saw the same spacesuit whether they were walking on the moon or not. Oh, and you mentioned too, you said, well, what are we looking at with the two astronauts on the moon? Those are from the J missions, 15, 16, and 17, where they had a video camera on the lunar rover that they had. It had separate power in that, so you could see both astronauts while they were on the moon for hours at a time for each of the EVAs. So they just took that and rotoscoped it or whatever they did, kinescoped it, and put it into their movie. KE5I6.
Thanks for clearing that up. By the way, is that a smart speaker that's annoying, or is it actually some other device it's more aggravating than Tony's birds.
This is a clock that we built from one of the lecture in labs, and it's lost its mind tonight. It's never been this loud. I'm going to probably have to unplug it or something. It's gone nuts.
It's hard to understand it, but it sounds like it's saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no."
I know. Whatever it is, I may unplug it and give it some sort of, severe thrashing. You want to know what next week's movie is? Possibly?
Do we dare? Go right ahead. This is N5BB.
All right, there's a couple of directions we could go. The Brain Eaters from 1956 was on schedule, but there is something being done in Tarrant County. It's a play, and it's Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. I know nothing about it except it just popped in here. They have free performances, and there's, I think, 5 different free performances that you can watch online. I was thinking of that as a possibility. I will get as much information on it as I can, and I'll make a decision by tomorrow morning sometime to see if it's possible or not. But that might be interesting to see a live performance, and I have means to pull and scrape from internet stuff. I may be able to actually record one of the performances and have it available for our group to see when they want to see it. But as I said, it's a completely live performance that you can watch, and it's free. So they emphasize both of those. I don't know. Seems like a good idea. Other than that, it will be the Brain Eaters from 1958, I think. Sounds like a good film, or not. KE5ICX.
Did you say the Brain Eaters? EATERS from 1958?
Yes, I will double check it right now, but I'm pretty sure that's the name.
Elvis has left the building.
Okay. Actually, the idea of having some local performance, which is live streaming, or maybe a recorded live stream that you can play back later, that would be great. That was science fiction or science related. And I think that's a good idea, Tom. I think we should encourage us to support our local thespians in 5BB.
Okay, Bill, I'll send this stuff out, and just as a blurb, I don't know who's listening or what. If you want to find out what the movie is each week, just send an email to me at my call sign, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com. I'll put you on the list, and I will send you the links. Otherwise, just go to the Facebook page, which is Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and just say you want to be part of the group, and I'll let you in, and you'll find out what the movie is each week. I send it all usually out Sunday morning sometime, so you'll have the info. Back to you, Bill, KE5I6.
Well, thank you, Tom. We had 7 participants tonight, plus K5JDW listening in the background. That's all for tonight. This is N5BB, closing Afterglow Net. By the way, if you haven't seen it, and you can stay up another hour or record on your DVR, Professor T, it's in Tango, is starting right now at this instant on Channel 13 KERA. It is a really interesting TV show that comes on once a week. He is really weird. It is in Flemish with subtitles, except there are English parts occasionally. but it is really, really interesting. So I strongly recommend, if you haven't seen Professor T, look at it. You'll be confused if you haven't seen the previous episodes, but it's a really neat movie, really good acting. I mean, a TV show. In fact, be clear.
Thanks, Bill. Great net. This is WB50ZL clear.
MCOM net, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
By the way, if you watch Professor T and you haven't seen it before, the thing that may confuse you is that the character of Professor T is the first letter of his last name. He's a criminal professor, and he has his own problems, and he has a vivid imagination, and so sometimes you see things